Welcome to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd, and together with Dr. Pat, we will learn to push the boundaries of our minds, to think delusionally, and create fertile ground for our big dreams to seed, grow, and manifest. Each episode, we will gain more ability to think delusionally and cultivate beyond boundaries faith that we can accomplish dreams which seem unreachable. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. You are born with dreams, gifts, and talents you are meant to use to make this world brighter. Let your delusional dreams shine. It all starts now.
Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to a very special show today, and it is special in multiple ways. As you know, if you've been following Vicki and following the show, what she has delivered is a beautiful journey, almost like a devotation about what happens when you step into life, when you have to declare what you're meant to do, despite everything around you, all the people around you, whatever people do and say, especially when it comes to the family or the partner or the relationship. And you say to them, hey, honey, I think I want to do a show on the Transformation Network. And they look at you like, oh, you really need to go back to that planet. Well, this is what this show is about. It's Shine, Delusion, Shine. If Vicki and I had $1 for everybody that has said, you're delusional. You want to do what? Go back to school. You have no high school. Honestly, you want to get a doctorate? Let's be clear. Barely graduated high school. So this show is let's get a ritual. Rituals are the foundational piece of not just creating a stability in the flow to you, but rituals are a way to clear everything out. Each of us has them, but today, let's see what we do when Vicki helps us flip on that ritual switch. And you know what I'm talking about, though, Vicki. I mean, yes. If we don't do something like this, what is the energetic blueprint that we carry?
Well, I have to be honest. I didn't say I'm going to consciously start a ritual to start my process.
I didn't either.
Stumble into it. And so let me start with that.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah. I wasn't quite that smart on that day. Okay, so this idea is coming from Twyla Tharp, who is a wonderful dance choreographer. And she had written a book several years ago called The Creative Habit. And I know that creative and habit sound kind of like, do those really go together? But her point is create a ritual that fits you to flip on the switch that, yes, I started my creative process on this day. And it helps you to get going, not give up, not back up, not say, oh, I can't do it. It gets you going. And so her ritual is getting up at the god-awful hour at 5:30 in the morning. That would not be me. And getting in the cab to go to the gym to warm up before she goes to the dance studio. So to her, that ritual is I'm in the cab at 5:30 in the morning, and that flips on her switch. Stephen Pressfield, who we've talked about before, he wrote The War of Art. The particular book that I looked at for this show is Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. He's very direct. And so his ritual before he starts writing each time is to say a prayer to the Divine Muse out loud. My ritual that I kind of stumbled into when I had done my one-woman show back in February 2022, I had pictures of my maternal ancestors, my mom, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother Jessie, and I kind of Warholed them. So I kind of painted them like Andy Warhol paintings, with the blue eyeshadow and kind of the blocked coloring. And I enlarged them to 30 inches by 20 inches and had them made into posters. And so I thought, well, they're really pretty and I don't want to just put them under my bed. So when I finally got my art studio, I put them up on the walls as decoration. And then I noticed eventually, every time I go into the studio, I would say hello to my grandmother, hello to my mother, hello to great-grandmother Jessie that died in a kitchen fire in 1921. And I talk to them throughout the day while I'm working, and then I say goodbye. That has become my ritual. And so there's no way that I can begin working without saying hello to them. And sometimes just asking for input. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I hear them. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be lighting a candle. It could be writing in your journal, saying, here's my goals for today.
Yeah.
It could be turning on certain music. When I go in my studio, my music is 80s on 8 because I'm a kid of the 80s. Woo!
Oh my gosh. Don't
Yeah,
even bring that up.
I know.
I'm ready to just jump into George Michael's here for a
Oh my
minute.
goodness, I
I'm
love
just
George
gonna
Michael.
channel George for a second. Oh my gosh.
Whatever gets your heart pumping and your mind going, and because to me, when I'm doing art or sculpting, painting or sculpting, my mind kind of goes in a
Yeah.
different direction than when I'm writing. When I'm writing, I have to have complete silence. So it's totally, personalize it toward you.
You know what I love about this, and I want to talk about this because I love what Vicki came out. For those of you that are just tuning in, I just want to make you aware. We're talking about, first of all, her show is Shine, Delusion, Shine. It's the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. And I just want to put the caveat, she and I would not be here today had we not done that. And not just one time, like over and over and over again. Like today, I had to do it again. But today is about let's get a ritual, or I like to say, let's get our ritual on.
Yeah,
And what you just described is a process you use. But here's the point, this is not a one size fits all. Find what works for you. Now,
absolutely.
I have the berries coming out now, the blackberries in the sacred land back there that's untouched, and the blackberries are like crazy here in the Pacific Northwest. So I go talk to the blackberries.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
that.
Um, I'm a kid from New York. The idea of going blackberries in your backyard, the only kind of wire we had was that wire that you put on the fence for people that can't get over. So this is a little ritual to me. And I want to just have you talk about how you move through doing everything you do. What did your grandmother say to you? How did you write that book?
Wow, it is amazing. If you open up your mind to it and start tuning in, the messages are there. And so, one funny thing that happened when I was creating this sculpture that we'll talk about in a minute,
Wow.
I didn't know what to put on her head. And I was thinking, is there a hand up there with a flower? Should I put a hand and a foot? And I thought, no, let's get crazy and put 2 feet up there. And I was in my art studio and I happened to look over at the portrait of my mom and I could hear her laughing at me. She's like, really, Vicki, 2 feet
Oh
on
my
top of the
God.
head? And I'm like, well, come on, mom. It makes sense because to me, it's coming out of her crown chakra and it's called ancestor cartographer. So she's been walking the ancestor line back in time.
Hmm.
So sometimes if I get stuck in my art studio, I'll like stand in front of the portrait of my grandmother, who is also an artist, and say, what should I do here? And inevitably something will float into my mind. When I'm writing, I write here at home. And so the table that I'm doing the podcast in right now is where I write. And it's a little bit different ritual. I have the same photos without the Warhol effect of my ancestors that I've glued to rocks. And I have them here with me. So as I'm writing my ancestral memoir and I kind of get stuck, or I'm like, well, mom, what would you have said? What were you thinking, during this scene? I can, get that energy and, a message floats down into my mind from her. This may be kind of corny, but sometimes if I'm writing something that is a little bit hard and I feel like I need extra courage, like, the last show we had talked about, I had written about my great grandmother Jessie, who died in the kitchen fire in 1921. That's why on her portrait I put the heart, with the flames coming out of it,
Yeah.
because she yelled for my grandmother to run out when she was 13. And if she hadn't been brave enough to do that, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. So that was really hard to
Yeah.
write because I had
Yeah.
drummed and journeyed and gotten the visual. Well, I have my lion from The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
And
nice.
so in 1989, when it was the 50-year anniversary of the movie, my brother had given me several of these. And this is the lion is the only one I have left, but he has his courage badge on. So sometimes I have it, at the top of a bookcase, but I'll bring it down in front of me and just remember, okay, you have courage, you have support as you're writing these hard things. And I know that sounds goofy. It's like, well, it's the stuff,
No,
but whatever works for you
I
that
have a
you
laughing
need.
dog down here.
What?
A laughing dog. I have a
Okay.
little dog. I'm not able to bring him up right now, but I've done videos with him. He's a
Okay.
laughing dog. And when I don't want to get into my little history here, but I have a tendency I can go really dark. And then I create dark art over there. But I need the dog. The dog's got the batteries, and I put the batteries in, and I put him up here. And every time I move, he's what do you call that? Move sensitive kind of deal.
Oh, motion
Oh
sensor.
my gosh, he goes crazy, falls off the desk. But there's a reason we do this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that reason. Because I don't know about you, but the more I do in the world, the more help I need, the more rituals that I create.
Oh, absolutely. And, not that I consider this part of the ritual, maybe it is, but anytime I do anything, when I was a professor at Quinnipiac University, it used to be when I would go into a classroom, maybe it was in my office or in the restroom before I went in, just privately in the stall, I would just pray, God, give me
Yeah,
words, give me logic. And so I do the same thing for the show, work through me, give me the words, let this help people. I do that, when I'm painting, when I'm writing, when I'm sculpting. And if I start to feel kind of stuck, I'm like, okay, God, Jesus, I know you're helping me. And, then you
yeah,
feel it goes through. So I ask for ancestor help. I ask for God, Jesus help, universe help. And so whatever it is that makes sense to you,
yeah.
you're working through your higher power, your true self. And so any of that, is going to help you push through and I think bring out talent in you that you did not know that you had more than you can do on
Yeah.
your own.
Well, I want to take a page out of your playbook. And I saw that we were talking about it today, but now I can talk about how seriously important it is. So we all are working remotely, and each of us has set up our own space. But I literally carved out a part of my house for
Yeah.
both me and Linda. But when I moved into this space that I'm in now, it just didn't feel right. I mean, I had all my things in it, but they weren't, I don't know the right word. They weren't energetically chatting with each other. So
Okay.
Linda, as amazing as Linda is, she's great with this. She's like, let's do it again. So we did it 4 times. Finally now, this is this is a little office that's spacious. I have more things on the wall than you can find in the Museum of Art, but they're sacred. And I want to ask you about sacred space because doing
Yeah.
that is a ritual, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing Twyla Tharp says in her book is take out any barrier, any limitation that is between you and your creative process, between you and creating your delusional dreams. And I've been on both sides of that, Pat. When I was in Texas and my first condo in Connecticut, and at the time I was only painting, and I didn't have a space. One place it was a one-car garage, one place had no garage, so I didn't really have a space. And so I had carpet everywhere, and I didn't have a quote unquote studio to keep everything out. So I had all of my acrylic paints and brushes in a box stuffed in a closet. If I was going to paint, I'd have to drag them out, put out blankets or towels, and that takes time. And maybe you have limited time. And I would do it, but it's like, oh, geez, you have to toil to get there. And like during COVID, when I was sculpting clay, and I didn't have my own studio at the time, and a lot of studios had closed. I was doing something for a juried show to, enter it. And so in this condo here in Santa Fe, I sculpted at home during my one woman show, getting ready for it. I did fairy tale masks that were wire mesh forms and I wrapped them with paper mache. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to get paper mache or clay down your kitchen sink or it will clog the pipes. And so I had to be super careful. So all of that was a barrier between me and getting done what I need to get done. I still did it, but it was like an extra chore. So getting my art studio, which took 7 times to find the place. I have a concrete floor. I have a big bucket in the sink. I don't have to worry about it. It doesn't have to be that elaborate, but anything you can do, like you said, putting the pictures up on the wall, maybe, I don't know feng shui, but maybe doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
My quote unquote writing studio, like I said, is right here. It's weird. I had been on the other side of the table just because it was close, the closest space. When we started this podcast, I turned it around because I knew we wanted to have art on the wall. And all of a sudden I thought, I feel really comfortable here.
Yeah,
Well, that
exactly.
reminded me when I lived in Washington State, I had done a meditation with these wise women shaman ladies, and we found our direction by meditating. And so I was out in the host's garden, sitting on the grass, eyes closed and sitting cross-legged. And so I was asking each direction, north, east, whatever. When I got to south, the lady's cat came and sat in my lap. And I thought, oh, south is my direction. Well, then I remember in my childhood bedroom in Happy, Texas, the south was to my back. And that's what they said, have your direction at your back. South is to my back, and that's why I feel comfortable. I,
Absolutely. Oh my
yes,
God, I can't even believe you brought that up because I was having the same conversation. And while we slowly moved my desk around, it didn't feel right. And I said to Linda, get the compass. I mean, my direction is west.
okay.
That's what I said to her. And I said, while over here I was west, it didn't feel right because I was coming out of a corner and the corner breaks up the energy. So now the east I'm looking at the east, that's where the
Yeah.
sun is coming up, but the
Hmm.
west is to my back. But
Yeah.
that wasn't the only issue. The issue was my relationship with the north and south. And what are we talking about? Now, look, many of you are thinking, I don't have that learning or training. You don't need to.
Well, I
And
don't either,
I
really.
don't either. But I need to thank Monica Sicard because I got to study with Indigenous people. We did amazing work with the Coming of Age program, but I got to work with Monica Sicard. And I'll never forget it as long as I live. And the minute she said to me, and this is what we're going to talk about next. The minute she said to me, Pat, what you need to always say is, may you walk in beauty.
Oh, that's
That's what you've
beautiful.
created. See, let's talk about that. Sculpting, things on the floor. Maybe that works for my friend who's an artist who puts, you find her breakfast a month later, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, I'm a piler and I am my dad always used to say, Vicki, you're messy. And I am, but it's organized chaos, Pat. This is
I
how
get
I
it.
work.
I, I believe me, I know. But the bottom line here is our space doesn't need to be elaborate.
No, not at
It
all.
has to feel great. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we get going, how we move. I've worked on major projects in my corporate life, mega projects, like
Hmm.
the divestiture of the phone company. I was on that team. But we didn't start with a gigantic, we
Right,
started teeny,
right.
scratching out things on the paper.
Yes.
Like wasn't even brainstorming. My boss used to call it, you need to free form what
Yeah,
you see.
yeah. Well,
Talk to that.
yeah, Twyla Tharp again, she calls it scratching. So you're kind of like a hen, in the dirt, scratch, scratch, scratching. And look at everything. And so going back to this sculpture, Ancestor Cartographer, I was reading a book. I don't have the quote with me. I made a print of it, when I was reading the book, and I think it's in my studio. I think it's from the miniaturist. I love historical fiction. And it was just something simple about walking the map, doing the journey. And I thought, oh, a map. I love old maps. And so the cartographer, is the official name for a map maker. And so when I was building this sculpture, I was thinking, I want to have the ancestor symbols. The dragonfly is me. The flower snake up the arm is my mom because that symbolizes the biting, beautiful relationship between mother and daughter. On the back is a wise moth, which is my grandmother with two blue eyes in the top wings and a beautiful red mouth and a bottom wing. And the white deer with the flaming heart is my great grandmother. So I knew I wanted the symbols. Okay, how can we, put this into a map? Well, on a map, they have the dotted line to show that you go from one piece of land to the other. And so I have, instead of dots, my usual, I always have flowering vines in each piece I do. And within the flowering vines, between each piece, it says, was begotten by. So it has a little muse face, and she's kind of throwing out of her mouth the divine um, flowering vine. The dragonfly was begotten by flower snake was begotten by moth was begotten by the deer. And so that's my little lands, ancestor lands that are connected. And like I said before, the feet coming out of the crown chakra, she's walking the path, going back in the ancestral line. And so I did some dark staining on the front and into the back because I wanted her to look weathered, like she's been on this journey. You know, she's been
Oh,
places. So all of that didn't come at once. It was printing out the quote, putting it on my studio floor, looking at, here's a printout of an actual dragonfly. So it takes me, putting these pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. And I've mentioned before, what I would love to do is have a multimedia installation. And I was working with one of my writing coaches yesterday with my ancestral memoir, and she actually said, "Oh, Vicki, you should do an installation." And I was like, "Yes,"
I
but it would be
totally
sitting out
agree.
there. Yeah.
My God, we're going to have to talk offline because I'm getting ready. We're getting ready to do a lot of great things here. But part of this is since our trademark got approved, we've been approved to do, you just need to look it up, Vicki. But
Okay.
trust me, trust what I say.
Well, I knew you
We've
do
been,
such big stuff. You have to start
I
small and
didn't even
grow.
think about the big stuff. I just put down what I wanted to do. It happened to
Yeah.
be 82 items in a
Yeah.
trademark, which
It's
were
great.
all were approved. But one of the things was to create a new creative narrative to hold events.
Mm.
You know how we went through the 90s, or I don't know what year it was, where everybody got out and did these big events and they sold you stuff. But what if we created an event where people created things to learn how to transform their lives?
Oh,
I
wow.
don't have any more information because I did like you, the scratching. That's
Yeah.
as far as I got.
One thing at a time. Well, I love that. And like with my writing, I say in my second play, Does This Make Me Delusional? And I've also created a chapter, I just wrote it this past week, in my book that is a quote unquote dream. But really, I had talked to a medium, and she said my dad was back in high school in the 1940s playing football. Well, that reminded me that, oh, I have their photo album, and there's this really great 8 by 10 glossy of him with his football team. And it's after a game, his hair is sweaty, he has on the jersey. Of course, there's a cigarette dangling from his lips, you know. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so, how could I write this? Because on the day he died, I went to an Andrew Wyeth exhibit at the Seattle Art Museum, um, in Seattle. And that really meant something to me to go see this certain painting that reminded me of my dad's soul. So it all kind of came together that my dad was playing football, cigarette dangling. I see a cheerleader that could be my mom. Well, in the play, I had the ancestor bleachers behind me with actual actors. He could walk to the ancestor bleachers, and his mother is sitting there, and she pats him and says, welcome. Well, how are you going to make that in the book? So I say the dream shifts, and he walks toward a huge set of bleachers with a multitude of people, and I intuitively understand that these are my ancestors. And his mom and dad, Pauline and Claude, my granny and granddad, are sitting there, and Granny says, "Welcome, son." So, you twist it, you change it, you sculpt it in a different way for each project. It doesn't have to be this is my set idea and this is always the idea. How can you shift it, to work in the next version of it?
But this is really what we're talking about today. And first, before we keep going, I want to take a minute and let folks know while we're talking about things, Vicki, you're doing things. You have a studio, you're creating art, and we only get to do a few little bits and sound bites. How do people find out more about what you're up to, what you're doing, and also get to admire your art?
My website is the best way, probably. It is vickiworldart.com, VICKI worldart.com. But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook under Vicki World Art at Vicki World Art. And so probably the social media is the better way if you're wanting to see the process of stuff. Because I don't just post when I finish something, I post the process, of here's where we are today. And, so that's kind of fun.
Okay, let's bring this full circle because we talked about the art behind you. And what I love about every show we do, there's such meaning. And there's in everything you just described today, but also previously on all the other shows, everything had a ritual underneath it, whether you know it or not. It had that moment, it had that. And remember when we first did this and we were talking about speaking to your ancestors?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I'm just not sure why we're not doing more of that. Now, I do a show with Mark, and so a lot of that comes up. But I just recently realized I'm not doing it for myself. So bring us full circle. What can we do here? How can we literally get out there and start to expand this energy?
Well, like we said, start small. I've thankfully, thank you God, I've been in a position to be able to get this really cool art studio to do my stuff, but I had to work to get to that point. And like I said, I was getting out my box of paints and, putting down towels and blankets and stuff. So don't feel like, oh, I can't do my delusional dreams. I don't have a studio or I don't have, a particular setup. It doesn't have to be elaborate. But set yourself up in a way that it's easy for you to work on your creative endeavors to get those delusional dreams going. And just think about what's important to you. Maybe you have a candle with a certain scent that just really makes you feel comfortable. Maybe that's your ritual. That's not that big of a deal, right? Maybe tapping into your ancestors to think about what were their dreams and how can they live vicariously through me, through you, to keep some of these things going. Because I truly believe that our dreams that we have in our heart, that God has placed in our heart, were probably somewhere down your ancestral line as well. So tap into that, just ask them, hey, grandmother, how could I do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I want to thank you for doing this, but I want to thank you too for doing this series because this has been a reoccurring theme in what you're talking about. And so often we cut off our creativity for many reasons we've talked about. I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. I can't start. It's overwhelming. I've got an idea. But what you're helping us all do is understand that's kind of delusional thinking,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But there are places where you can start, and that's what you're guiding us to. And I love that piece. I can't tell you how much. I wasn't going to say much about it, but I looked at that and said, yep, some days that is me. That is exactly me. And not even knowing what it meant to you. Vicki, thank you so much. Leave us with a personal message if you could.
Well, I like what you said that you don't have to start big. If you start feeling overwhelmed, stop right there. Back it up and say, what is one little baby step I can take today? Sleep on it, pray on it, ask your ancestors about it, and maybe something will bubble up when you're least expecting it, like that scratching thing. So don't let yourself be overwhelmed. Start with one little kernel and then play. This is supposed to be fun. Play with it and see how it grows. And so that's why I like putting stuff on the floor because I walk by it all the time and it gets it down into my subconscious and then things start bubbling up. So don't be intimidated, just start and I guarantee it will start growing into these beautiful delusional dreams.
Vicki Todd, everybody. And I want to just say to everybody, when you go visit her work, also you can follow her on social media and other places, but please feel free to reach out to her. She can also coach you and help you. She can help you really learn out of the gate that it's not delusional to live and energize your creative side. We'll see you all next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd with Dr. Pat. Tune in with us each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more simple, repeatable habits to identify the dreams, gifts, and talents you were born with. Expand your mind and believe your dreams can become a reality. We invite you to tap into the flow of the delusional realm with us to make this world brighter. For more information on living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life and to connect with me, visit VickiWorldArt.com.